Thanks for your company. The details now. Government is assuring efforts are ongoing to contain violent acts of individuals said to be seeking secession of the Volta region from Ghana. The group has burnt down a police station, a vehicle at the STC yard, seized weapons, and hurt others to drum home their demands. National Security Minister Albert Kandapa and Defense Minister Dominic Nituwo met journalists in Accra to discuss the issue Tuesday night. Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah says public support is crucial if the situation can be brought under control. Head of our security desk, Gifty Andwapia, reports.
It's been 2 separate attacks in a space of 5 days, and there have been fierce criticism against national security apparatus and how they've handled the matter. Tonight, state authorities here have been trying to give the media some background information on the matters at hand and what is being done about the situation.
And also to provide context to some of the things that we are not able to say publicly on the mass media platforms. And I think that we've had the opportunity to do both while also taking feedback from our colleagues in the media. I think it's been a successful engagement. You get a sense that I think as we are seeing play out, there are many segments of our society that don't have a full understanding of what has transpired and have sometimes even bought into narratives that they may have heard. You heard me even in exchanges with some of the media colleagues about something they thought they had heard, where we challenged and referred them back to the actual, recordings. And then they are also able to express to you some areas where they think some particular action should be taken, and you have an opportunity to also explain why some tact and balance should be brought in, because it's a multifaceted challenge and you've got to deal with it with various instruments. And all in all, like I said earlier, I think it's been a fruitful engagement. Among others,
the sense I'm getting from the state's position for now is to go hard on the people they're now describing as criminals. Engagement does not seem to be on the table. The state says it has the situation under control. The coming days will help all of us determine what becomes of this group whose activities in the Volta region are terrorizing the people there. Gifty Andwapia, JoyNews, Alisa Hotel, Accra.
Has also been detailing how they're going to court public support in dealing with this particular incident. Well, former Member of Parliament for North Tong, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, has condemned the Western Togoland separatist groups for undertaking the attacks in part of the North Tong district and the Eastern region. According to him, none of those areas fall under the Western Togoland. That's the enclave of the Volta region under contention. He gave further historic perspective to this on PM Express with Evans Mensah.
Indeed, one can go further to say that Ghana was divided into the colony proper, Asante, and then the northern territories in the north. But then the truth of the matter is that a lot of people in the so-called British Togoland or British mandated Togoland were having their own counter origins in the Gold Coast. The impression being given by some as if what's his name, Togoland was Ewe. It's part of the fallacy, which is actually affecting people's way of thinking. And it has been going on for years. Because at the time of independence, Togoland was called Transvolta region. It was not Togoland. The name was changed to Transvolta Togoland. But you find out that there are Gonjas, there are Nampusis, there are so many other ethnic groups north of Ho and Pandu who are not Eves.
Okay.
They are not Eves. And I have noticed over the years that when they talk about, they say number 9, and then people cling as if they are making reference to the Eves. And I try to remind people that the so-called number 9 was not anybody's decision to call the region number 9. At the time of independence, there was a beauty contest that was held. and the people had picked numbers. And the winner happened to come from Pando.
I love you.
And her number was 9.
Okay.
And so when they talk about number 9, they are only making reference to that lady and say that is where she comes from. That is the number 9 people. But she was from Pando. So this confusion had been going on over the years. There was only a small group that were Eves, which is the Pando and the Ho. The rest of the Eves were in the Gold Coast. They were not part of Togoland at all. You can take Anglo, Mafi. Indeed, the funny part of all is that the place that they went to go and cause the havoc the other time, which is Mepe and Bato, had never been in Togoland.
No. So these are proper Gold Coast, I mean now Ghana territory.
That was proper Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And I have authority to speak about it because many people do not realize that I was a member of parliament for representing that area.
Okay.
And now my own nephew is the MP for that area.
That is Okujeto Ablakwa.
That's my nephew. It's my younger brother's son.
Yes.
So this confusion has been going on all the time. So as soon as you mention Ewe, it's as if, we the Ewes, we are this. And I said, no, even in Togo itself, the Ewes are only in the south. All the northern portion of Togo, they are not Ewes. And the majority of the people from the Volta region are not Ewes.
Now, the former MP for Hohoi North, Kosi Kedem, blamed failure of successive governments to listen to the agitating group for the current disturbances. He calls for dialogue, insisting is the best way to resolve the problem and promote coexistence between the group and other Ghanaians.
The problem is that there was a plebiscite in 1956 as a result of the UN visiting mission. We came to the two Togos, French Togo and British Togo, in 1955. And then they recommended that there should be a plebiscite in British Togoland to determine their political fate. Now, so the plebiscite was carried out, and the majority of people, Togoland people, said they wanted a union.
With Ghana?
With independent Gold Coast.
Okay. Which later became Ghana.
Union.
Okay.
Not integration.
What's the difference?
Let me tell you. The UN visiting team recommended integration. That Togoland should be integrated with the Gold Coast. But the UN General Assembly rejected that and said it should be a union. Now, the union, from the point of view of the UN, is that there should be sovereign equality between the Gold Coast and Togoland. That there should be the two territories should be partners. There should be interdependence. You understand?
So each remaining their own sovereign.
There should be sovereign equality. So, for instance, in America, you have about more than 50 states. They have some semi-autonomy, and we have an umbrella government.
True.
I think the UN was thinking on that line, that Gold Coast will have its identity, Togo will have its identity, but there should be a common government. But then, Resolution 1044, we recognize the union, recommended the union. The same Resolution 1044, UN Resolution 1044, invited the British government, which was the administering authority, to take such steps as necessary to bring about the union. Now, so if a trust territory being ruled by the UN and a colony being ruled by Britain are are to come into a union, what do? You have to sit the two of them down for them to determine what type of government they will have, what should be their responsibility and obligation and benefit. Such a thing did not happen. No meeting took place between the people of Gold Coast and Togoland, call it conference or meeting or seminar. But what happens is that on the eve of Gold Coast independence, around 4th March, the British government, with the help of the CPP government, just sent troops to Togoland and occupied the place on the pretext that they were quelling rebellion. If somebody says he has a problem, be it constitutional or legal or even cultural, and you are in a community together, and they say, I have a problem, you invite the person and at least listen to him. Look, I have appeared before the National Reconciliation Commission, 2002, and I presented the petition and drew the attention.
The petition to do what exactly? What were you petitioning for?
That there's no union document on the so-called union.
Let me ask you are you a secessionist?
Why should I be a secessionist?
Just a clarity.
That question is provocative.
No, I'm asking. I mean, just a clarity, because people are listening, so that we clarify that. I mean, so what exactly are you asking for in the petition? I'm
saying that there is no union document on the so-called union, so it should be rectified, and we stay together as brothers and sisters.
Okay.
What are you going to do with the secession?
Okay.
I'm saying that we have stayed together since 1914.
So
up to date.
Continue.
So what are you going to secede for?
But because the reason why we're having this is to find a solution. So we want us to stay together. And again, everybody who's listening who may be part of those who started the violence on Friday, what you're saying is that we cannot break apart.
No.
We cannot use violence.
No.
We still need to remain together as one people, correct?
I've been telling people that violence
cannot solve the problem.
Listen, violence, confrontation, repression, they are very powerful. But dialogue, negotiation, and engagement are far more powerful than violence.
Okay.
Because violence does not solve any problem. Dialogue does. It gives you a long-lasting solution.
Well, Vice President of the Volta Regional House of Chiefs, Togbe Deprehodo IV, however, describes the attacks by the group as criminal, which require arrests and prosecution.
That what has happened, or the events that happened over the weekend and last night, are all plain criminal acts. I think that's the premise from which we should start all the talk. And you see, as far as all of us are concerned, even if these people claim to have some case, I don't think that they are bringing that case up in the proper way. We live in a civilized society, and I think that what people ought to do to articulate their grievances is to follow due process. The mere fact that they have resorted to these kinds of acts, which are criminal in nature, for some of us, makes it very difficult for anybody to even throw any sympathy at them. That is the starting point of all these discussions. Because if you go on this kind of rampage, you cause bodily injury to people. Death has resulted. And as we have stated in our press statement, innocent people have even been arrested. I don't think this kind of thing all very well for any group of people who would want to be held.
Away from the Western Togoland secession issue, a survey by the Ghana Statistical Service has revealed that most localities in Ghana have not benefited from government's free water. Government announced free water and electricity as part of measures to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on the citizenry. Key amongst its findings is that close to 78% of localities did not benefit from the subsidy on water. Well, let me just bring you more on that survey. We would also be joined by Head of Price Statistics at the Statistical Service, John Foster Ajahu. But here's more of the findings of that survey. Key amongst those findings is that there was a rise in crime. 34.1% of localities saw an increase in crime. Lockdown localities saw the highest, 47.1%, quite surprising. Increasing in crimes, theft and burglary were the two most common crimes, followed by domestic violence and assaults in that order. There is also the limited reach of subsidies on utilities, and this is quite the focus for us because at the time this was announced, there was a variety of reactions. While some lauded it, some spoke about the lack of access to water, and so they were not even going to benefit from this in the first place. So close to 25% and 78% of localities did not benefit from the subsidies on electricity. I'll be showing you more on that because there are more graphics, pictures that tell the story in a better way. But we've been joined by John Foster Ajahu, who is Head of Price Statistics at the Statistical Service. Thank you so much for joining the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. So quickly, let's just find out, why was this survey necessary in the first place?
So the motivation for conducting this study was to help contribute to the state's effort in trying to, if you like, assist people that will be heavily hit by the pandemic. And we were of the opinion that if we do not provide data that will inform policy, then the pandemic may end up, deepening the inequality that we have in our country. And so this motivated us to provide some data so that indeed we could bring the issue of the vulnerable communities to the attention of policymakers so that they can be assisted appropriately.
Interesting. So you coordinated this project, and the issue of free water and electricity was exciting for a lot of people, but there were also concerns about the lack of access to it in the first place, and so those who already had access were going to be the beneficiaries. Government came up with a different plan for unreached or underserved communities, and that was to use the tanker services. In your research, did you identify at any point if some of these localities actually benefited from the tanker services?
Yes, indeed. I mean, quite a number of localities benefited. But then what the finding is bringing out the fact that, yes, even though there was this alternative arrangement for localities to be served with these tanker services, laudable as it is though, but then it was not enough to reach all localities. And don't forget the issue about the subsidy basically was more for communities that were being served by the Ghana Water Company. And so other localities that were using alternative source of drinking water, then invariably were not going to benefit from that subsidy. And quite a number of them did not get, these tanker services. Yes, it was, we saw more, especially in the lockdown areas, like the Greater Accra metropolitan area and the Greater Kumasi and the surroundings. But then going further into the district, the hinterlands, this was quite on a limited scale. Yeah.
Tell us more about the communities you surveyed. What is their demographic, the make of these communities? High-end communities or local, rural? Just help us understand.
So we took, a very representative sample of all communities in the country. And so you really have, AMA, we first selected from the district and then the localities. So it cut across all the demographics, the rich, the poor, as we may call them. So we have Kumasi, we have Accra, and then we have the rural ones in there. And then it is striking to see that, yes, whilst the Greater Accra metropolis and Kumasi and the other areas are getting some of these services, then those who are far apart, the vulnerable ones, unfortunately did not get. That is what this survey is bringing to attention of all of us to address.
There was also something very interesting in one of your findings about border districts being the hardest hit. I'll be showing something shortly where you you focus on the cost, for example, of products. And in hand sanitizer, in the case of hand sanitizers, for example, the border communities were so high in the graphic display or description of that information. Did we find out why this was so?
Yes, no, we had it was a community kind of interview, a focus group interview, and interestingly, the border districts, have quite a substantial of their activities depending on trans-border trade, and so you are aware. All of us are aware that because of the pandemic, the borders have to be closed. In fact, and they still remain closed. So it therefore then suggests that majority of them who depended on the trans-border trade could not then, carry on the activities. And so then you have more people now chasing fewer goods, and the law of demand and supply will tell you, definitely, of course, then prices will go up. And so, in fact, for me, the interesting thing for us all is that then we should begin to realize that there's a need for us to create alternative source of livelihood for these people. So even if the borders still remain closed, how can we get these products from other areas to them so that the prices can be brought to reachable levels?
Okay, so we also have masks which were quite high, some about 40%, 38.2% of people in border districts said they were not able to buy them. And there was also the issue about food items and how during the period they went very high. And I want to believe that is because people were buying in excess and keeping at home in fear of food shortage, right?
Well, that could be partly true. It's also the case that, as I said, because they were not having the access, the supply was cut short. And so the few that was there, then the people took an undue advantage and they were exploiting the consumers. In fact, even in areas that did not record that high, as we saw in Accra and other areas, people took advantage of the pandemic and they were increasing prices arbitrarily. So you can imagine those who were even far away from the capital city. So the few sellers that will tell you, we went to Accra, they've increased the price, transport has gone up, and then they slap so much, margins on that. And so yes, life for the rural, what I call rural districts, in terms of prices of goods was really, really, really unbearable during the pandemic, the heat of the pandemic.
Mr. Ajaho, there was also the issue of crime. And I remember when this came up, I saw the reaction of some of the people I shared the information with, and they were a bit surprised. The thinking was that during the lockdown period, because a lot of people were at home and there were very few people outside, crime would have reduced because there's less movement. And so if anybody was going to move, the police would check them. If you were coming out, there was going to be some enforcement asking you to go back home. What did you find as the reason for the increase in crime? I'll come back to the domestic violence bit because that's on a different scale, but let's talk about burglary and theft.
So on the crime, you are talking about the issue of the police. It then begs the question whether we have indeed enough policemen and women to be able to police all our localities at all times. And again, the issue about we being at home, that is true, but then why the theft case? Remember, most people who have lost their job because of the pandemic, people are not getting income or not getting food to eat, will find ways to survive. And so, for example, if you were home and they know you were always home, they'll be monitoring you. The slightest inch that you may step out or probably sleep at night, they take advantage. So yes, we were home, but the criminals were developing strategies to also survive, so to speak. Illegal though. So yes, police were there, but they were not almost at all the places, because of the numbers. And indeed, as you say, if you are going out, the barriers are there, they would send you back. But the theft case was not being conducted at the barriers there. It was being carried out in the homes, in the rural communities, where, police presence might not be there. Yeah.
Sadly, there was also an increase in domestic abuse and domestic violence. In the cases and with the victims that you spoke to, how were these acts carried out? And is it the case that these people were already victims of abuse, and so having them in a lockdown situation aggravated their case, or these are fresh abuse cases. These are families where there were no issues of domestic violence, but because of the lockdown and maybe the stress associated with this.
Precisely. I mean, this study covered the period of the pandemic and especially the lockdown. And so all the reported cases of crime happened within the lockdown period at that time. So these were fresh issues. Unfortunately, we did not speak to the victims themselves. Okay. But of course, I mean, as in our earlier discussion, we're talking about the fact that now people are home more. Then, of course, you could, I mean, it is expected. It's not a good thing, but you wouldn't be too surprised that because people are more at home, then they begin to, if you like, exhibit that bad character of theirs. And so it behoves on all of us to begin to do more education. I mean, people are doing a lot. So that we have to really have an orientation, character change. And the fact that you are staying home with your children and your wife doesn't mean that any slightest provocation you have to abuse them. No.
All right. Mr. Jaho, finally, is this the last of this COVID-19 impact survey we are going to see?
No, not at all. So we are still having discussion with our partners, because as you say, this is generating a lot of interest and discussion around it, and that's what we seek to do, to bring the data so that policymakers would get, for example, the issue about water. Then if we are admitting that something else happened, they will then know what policies they can use for targeting the vulnerable. So yes, there'll be more that will come. And indeed, even for this wave, there are a lot of findings that we're going to be sharing as we go ahead. There's issue about death. We're going to come along with that, so we know whether indeed there are more deaths that are not being reported or whatever. So there are a lot that we're going to do, and there'll be more waves. That
will be interesting, especially on the death bit. Thank you very much for your time. This Head of Price Statistics, Mr. Foster Adjaho. He's with the Ghana Statistical Service, and we've been talking about their recent survey on the impact of COVID-19. And we've been finding out that about 78% of localities in the country didn't benefit from government free water and other amenities. Well, let's move on now. The coalition of aggrieved teachers is demanding the payment of salaries which have been in arrears since 2012. They are heading to the Ministry of Education and GES to picket. My colleague Manuel Kranting has been interacting with some of them and sent in this.
That government releases monies which are in arrears. I'm speaking to one of the men here. For how long? How long has your money been in arrears?
For 21 solid months. My full salary has been in arrears for full 21 months.
But how did your salary get into arrears? Because we know the government has been saying that it's been clearing the legacy arrears and so on.
Now, what happened was that during those periods, that was 2012 through up to 2016, that was under the previous government. What happened was that they introduced a program that a policy that whoever has an arrears of salary, being it an upgrading, being it a new entrant or whatever, you'll be paid 3 months. Then the rest that you are being owed will be audited, and after auditing, you will be paid. So they tagged that salary legacy arrears. You understand me? So those of us who were having those types of arrears, we have money. It's ranging from reinstatement, reactivation, salary arrears, upgrading, so many categories. You understand? So many categories. What is happening is that they have tagged all the categories of arrears as legacy arrears. Once it was under the previous government, that they are auditing into it before they do pay us.
And that's the process, to audit before you pay. And we know that, 2 days ago, the GS released a list for you people to submit your details so that it will be validated. And then you're here picketing.
My dear, I understand you that GS released a list that they are going to do a validation. We went to our district offices and our names were not there. Now, what is happening is that this exercise that we are talking about, we have done it several, submitted mine 7 times, and it did not prove anything. You understand me? It didn't prove anything. So what we are trying to say now is that what you have done to us previously, we can't do it again.
Oh, yes.
Because you have been doing it.
Yes.
I am telling you that I had my arrears since 2014, 6 years ago. Information. Once we received that particular or those particular information documents for 7 times. You see, what is happening is that they want to use that submission of documents to delay the process of payment, and that they will not pay. And we are talking about an amount. Some people are being owed over 400 million. That is 40,000 Ghana cedis. Myself, 21 months full salary. Then I was receiving 1,007. So multiply 1,700 by 21, and you understand the money I'm talking about. It is about 40,800 Ghana cedis.
But you would understand that, I mean, they are not going to request the details if they have the details. Perhaps there could be inefficiencies and so on.
Now, my brother, let me tell you, I am the very teacher who went to audit service. It isn't that somebody has gone there to come and tell me. I went to the audit service myself. They have the details. When I went to GS, I mentioned my staff ID, and the person told me my arrears is ranging between 2012 and 2016, so I should go to audit. So I went to the audit. So when I went there was a lady there. She also took my staff ID. I didn't mention my name. After keying my staff ID, she mentioned my name upon Richard. Oh, the school that you were in. Oh, the number of months that you are being owed. Oh, the totality of the amount. Then I was stretching my neck to look at it. You understand? Then the lady pushed the laptop. Come and see. I saw so many names. Apart from mine. The lady scrolled down. I saw so many names. The amount that they are being owed, the months, the number of months that they are also being owed.
So what you're telling me is that you're not going to cooperate with the new guidelines that they brought, the list, and they say they go and put your value. You're not going to cooperate.
My brother, what I am telling you is that these guidelines are not new.
Manuel Cranting there speaking to some aggrieved teachers who are picketing the Education Ministry. Will bring you updates, hopefully a response from the ministry. Away from that, the Office of the Special Prosecutor has advised government to suspend its planned launch of an initial public offer regarding the Ejapa royalties agreement. According to Special Prosecutor Martin Amidu, the move is to allow his outfit the opportunity to conclude its ongoing corruption risk assessment. Government says the new agreement is to enable the country use a special purpose vehicle, Ejapa Royalties Limited, to secure about $1 billion to finance infrastructure projects. But the office, in a letter to the Finance Ministry, explained the non-submission of information and documents pending to be submitted by that particular ministry. And so this has to be suspended. Parliamentary correspondent Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us with more details of that letter. So Joseph, just briefly tell us what more the Office of the Special Prosecutor is asking on this particular deal. Hello, Joseph, if you can hear me, I'm asking that you help us with more details of that directive from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Can you unmute or join with an audio? We can hear you. We'll be taking you back to Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, but let's do the story while we arrange a better line with him. The Formina police is citing COVID-19 as a reason for delay in prosecuting a man who allegedly shot and maimed his wife at Akromaso in the Adanse North District of the Ashanti region last year. Simon Krampa is accused of shooting his wife several times over suspicion of cheating. Though the woman survived, she lost her right arm and is unable to cater for her 6 children. We'll bring you that story shortly. But let's go back to Joseph Gakpo on the Office of the Special Prosecutor asking that any IPO on the Japa Minerals royalty deal be suspended for now. Hello, Joseph. What more do we know about this?
So we gather that the said communication has actually gone out from the Office of the Special Prosecutor to the Minister of Finance. Now, the indication is that it's actually now come to the level where the Finance Ministry has begun its own consultations in order to decide on the way forward. I've been checking with the source, and the indication is that a firm decision on whether to go ahead and suspend, as has been directed by the Office of the Special Prosecutor, would have to be taken in consultation with the Office of the Attorney General. And so at the level of the Finance Minister and government broadly, those conversations have now begun. You know, when the Special Prosecutor initially wrote to Parliament in particular, requesting for more information on this, he indicated that he's actually asking for those details to investigate this to avoid a potential case of corruption, which is why government is even a bit more jittery in terms of these concerns that are coming from him, to the extent that the Special Prosecutor is looking at this as something that he has to do to avoid potential corruption. So we gather that government has now begun the necessary consultations, subsequent to which a firm response will go out to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But even at that level, positions are divided. There are those questioning whether he has the power to do that, and there are those who are looking at the effect that this would have on the IPO if it's postponed. So those firm decisions are to be taken after follow-up consultations with the Office of the Attorney General and all.
Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku Gakpo, there with details of that directive, also from the Office of the Special Prosecutor on the suspension of the launch of the IPO with regards to the Ejapa royalties deal. You're watching News Desk with me, Bernice Abubedu Lansa. Now to National Science and Maths Quiz, brought to you by Bright Senior High School, Kukrin Tumi, DBS Colorlink Roofing, Adonko Hand Sanitizer, and Adonko Next Level Energy Drink. The latest update we're receiving, one of the biggest contests today, is between Kumasi Anglican Secondary School, Kumasi Academy, I beg your pardon, Infantapim School and St. Mary's Senior High School. And Kumasi Academy has 31 points at the end of round 3. Infantapim School has 21 points and St. Mary's Senior High School has 17 points. It's live on our Facebook page, JoyNews on TV. You can watch it. You can also join the conversation, hashtag NSMQ on Joy. But it's now time for business with Darryl Kwao. Do stay.